But yeah, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, of course.
So before we get into your life as a children's book author, I want to know, 4 years ago, we were trying to figure out this whole COVID thing, the shutdown, all of it. How did you make it through that time period and how did it change you?
Oh, that's a tough question. I honestly I struggled through that time frame. I'm a very social person,
Yeah.
and so being at home was a challenge for me and I actually got pregnant in April of 2020.
Okay.
So I was pregnant. My husband had kidney disease and asthma, so he was high up on the list of candidates that could, get severely ill. And then, of course, I had an elderly mother, so we were a very tight knit pod. And I would say the only way we really managed to get through it was that we stuck together and we went for walks and we kept our little pod and we just tried to remain positive and do what we could and we had to let go of a lot of things. Both my husband and I were working from home, and normally we're very much about like limiting screen time for our daughter. She was 4 at the time. We were like, we don't want a lot of screen time. We don't want her eating a lot of sugar and things like that. And then during COVID, it kind of became just survival mode. And so I actually wrote a blog post during COVID about cookie negotiations, the new normal. And that was how we would get through our work meetings with our daughter. It was like a negotiation, like if you can go watch your show or go play for 30 minutes while we do this meeting, that's 2 Oreo cookies. And it was like we would negotiate back and forth and so I think it was just a matter of getting creative and trying to keep a positive attitude. And we did our best to stay safe. And yeah, it's knock on wood, something I hope we never have to live through again.
Yeah, for sure. So, not only are you an author, there's more that goes into what you do, but I want to get to the heart of it. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. It's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
I would answer them. It's kind of a two-part question because I'm an author in my personal life, but I'm also professionally, I work in wildland fire. And so I would say I would answer to both questions or ask the children which one they would like to hear most about. Um, and so for what I do during the day at Wildland Fire is I work at the National Interagency Coordination Center, or actually National. Sorry, I'm having just a moment of.
That's okay.
I work at the National um, Fire Center. There we go. NIFC here in Boise, Idaho, and I'm a training specialist. And so what I do during the day is I help put together trainings for wildland firefighters and try to figure out like what's the best way that we can teach folks within our organizations and our agencies better ways to be stronger, better firefighters in all the different elements that goes into that, like support roles like dispatch and like finance and budget, all the things. And so that would kind of be part of my answer. A lot of kids like to know about the what it's like to fight fire, and so I'd answered some of those. As for being a writer, the journey to becoming a writer was kind of an interesting one for me. I didn't grow up wanting to write. I've
Yeah.
always enjoyed writing, but it's kind of been more like a personal thing for me. And what actually motivated me to write a children's book was I was doing my own discovery on emotional intelligence and trying to figure out how do I deal with my emotions? How do I handle stressful situations? How can I make myself better? And then I realized as I was learning some of these like techniques that this was something I really wish my kids knew how to do. And at the time, my oldest was 5 and my youngest was 1. And I was like, how much heartache could I prevent for them in life if I could help them and give them these tools at a young age?
Yeah.
And that was what inspired me to kind of start writing books. I went searching for them first, and I found a lot of books for kids that were about emotions and how they're a good thing, but not really giving them the tools to kind of go past that.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided, well, I'm going to take a stab at doing it myself.
Yeah, for sure. So What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
In the third grade, I think my dream was to be an actress.
Okay.
I was really into acting at the time. I enjoyed everything about it, being on stage. I think the idea of kind of becoming someone else was really fun and intriguing.
Yeah. So how did you get to this point? Take me back to where you were born and raised, and what were some of the seeds that got into you to get into helping firefighters and to become an author? How did that happen?
Well, I was born in Nevada and lived in Winnemucca, and my dad actually worked for the Bureau of Land Management, and he was on the land resources side. But because of that, we moved around a lot. So we kind of, as a child, I bounced around. We went from Winnemucca to Lakeview, Oregon, which is even smaller, and then culture shock from like this small town of Lakeview, Oregon, to Phoenix, Arizona, and then from there to Elko, Nevada, which was kind of another culture shock for me. And that's where I went to school and graduated from high school. And then I went to college at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And I would say that was kind of the the introduction for me on starting my emotional intelligence journey and trying to figure out some of that stuff because going from Elko, Nevada, which is a town of maybe 30,000 folks, to Las Vegas was another big culture change.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot in college, which I think we all do, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think it's a huge time of growth. And so that's kind of when that journey started. And it was funny because I just wanted to make money in between my years at college. So I would come home and try to find a job, but I didn't want just any job. And my dad was like, "Well, why don't you try dispatch for wildland fire?" And I was like, "Well, I don't want to be like you, Dad." It's kind of that, rebellious teenage thing. I don't want to work for the government like you, Dad, but I guess just to earn money for college, I'll do it. So I did it for a while and I kind of fell in love with it. And 22 years later, I still work for the government in wildland fire. Um, so that was fun. I kind of transitioned from dispatching and being the one responsible for sending the resources out to the fires to actually going into the training element of it and being able to design the trainings that our folks use. And the author part of it, it just kind of naturally occurred. I started writing, I would say, in my early to mid 20s, just to kind of journaling, trying to figure out my own life experiences through writing. And then I kind of transitioned into writing blog posts for some of our wildland firefighter communities, trying to address we've had a little bit of harassment issues and some stuff like that go on culturally over the past couple decades and so I would write about those topics because I was very passionate about it. And then that kind of transitioned into a blog, which then slowly morphed into writing children's books as I realized it's good to help adults, definitely. But if I could take some of these aspects that I was learning about and actually aim them earlier in life, then I think it would have a greater effect.
So what was your favorite children's book growing up?
My favorite children's book, I loved the Bernstein Bears.
Yeah.
They were some of my favorite books ever, and I still have a huge collection that I read through with my children. It was probably a two-parter. I enjoyed the stories and the characters, but it was also kind of something special that I always got from my grandma.
Yeah.
She always brought me a Bernstein Bear book. And so it was, I would say it's a kind of two-part reason that I love those books.
Yeah. So who's been an inspiration or a hero for you in your life?
I would say that my dad was one of my big inspirations and my big heroes. He he grew up and had a little bit of a tougher childhood, and he lost his brother and his mother to cancer at a pretty young age. He actually ended up passing from cancer himself, but watching him go through some very challenging things in life, and just the resiliency that it took to get through that and to keep a positive attitude and to stay present with himself and his kids. That was huge to me. And he was probably the one person that I always felt unconditionally loved by. And that also has inspired me, especially as a parent, to try to emulate that same kind of feeling for my kids.
That's great. So if you could meet anybody on the planet right now that you find fascinating and spend some time with them, who would it be?
I could meet anyone on the planet right now. I would want to meet Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just is such a strong, amazing woman, in my opinion. And I think she just handles herself with so much grace.
Hmm.
And she's been put in so many situations where I know it's been challenging. And then to also, be the wife of the president, um, who isn't obviously isn't always liked by everybody, and to handle that, but also to have children while doing that, and to try to it seemed like she did a really good job of maintaining some sense of normalcy for her kids while they were living at the White House. And some of the stuff that she's done for children, I find really inspiring too.
Yeah, I loved her book. It was great. Yeah, it was cool to have that inside portrait of Barack and how he came to just the whole thing was very interesting and illuminating. But I think it's safe to say at the end of that book, she's never going to run for president.
And which is disappointing, but I don't blame
Yeah,
her.
I don't either. I don't either at all. So at the end of the day, what is it that gets you up every day to do the work that you do, to do this duality? You have the day job and then you're an author. How does all of that work? What is the gas in your tank, so to speak?
The gas in my tank is the idea, or even just the hope that I can make a difference, that I can make the world a better place. And it goes for both jobs. In Wildland Fire, everyone that works in this community has a sense of service, a need to provide and to help and to do something to make a difference within the community. And so that's my drive there. And especially as in my roles as like a dispatcher and a training specialist, my main job is to help the boots on the ground, to help the actual firefighters. So that's my drive in that realm. And then in my writing realm, the drive is similar, just for a different audience. I want to make a difference for kids and for their parents. Through my books, my main goal is to give kids tools and to use through either like fun games or fun stories to be able to start to recognize and identify their emotions and to start to process those. And at the same time, my hope is that as parents are reading these books to their kids, they can start to pick up on those same tools and slowly incorporate them into their daily lives. So it becomes something that not just a book that folks are reading, but a conversation that people continue to have.
So what's the first thing that you wrote that you got a response where you thought, I can do this. I can be an author. I can deliver this to people.
The first one that I got a response from was a blog post that I did for the Lessons Learned Center, which is a blog within the wildland firefighting community. And it was called Duty, Integrity, and Respect. And it was about taking a moment to look myself in the mirror and think about the role that I played in in the harassment that was happening within the workplace as an individual. Kind of really examining that the majority of us in the organizations or in the community are not the problem. We aren't creating the harassment, but how many of us are continuing to let it happen? Like how many of us see it and don't speak up? How many of us are complacent in, allowing it to continue instead of really standing up to create some change? And that blog post, as probably expected with any kind of controversial topic, got both good and bad feedback.
Yeah.
And so watching that and seeing that was really interesting. And I think the biggest impact for me though was I had a handful of moments in time where I would go to do something like a conference for work, and someone would find me in the bathroom and they would say, I remember one young gal found me and said, I just want to thank you for writing your article. And it really made me think, and I appreciate it, and I'm glad someone finally said it. And it was those kinds of comments that made me think, even if I can't change a bunch of minds, even if I can't have a ginormous impact, if I can even touch the lives of one or two people, then I'm making a difference. And that was kind of the turning point for me, because before that there was always kind of this fear of, well, what will people think? What if people don't like it? And I really had to get over that before I could go into publishing, because there's a lot of feedback and
Yeah,
criticism in publishing.
certainly is. So, of all of the things that you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
This may sound like a funny answer, but the thing I'm the most proud of is actually the way my children are turning out.
Yeah,
Yeah, my oldest daughter, she's 8 years old now, and she has become such a wonderful, kind person. An example of this was she was in a basketball program after school, and I went to watch just one day just to be able to, see what they were doing. And she was in second grade, and there were three different instances of kids getting upset and kind of running to the side, and a couple kids started crying. And each time this happened, my daughter, Isabel, was the one to go over to the person and sit with them and say, "What happened? What's going on? How can I help?" And it was just such a proud moment to see that all of the things that I had been trying to instill in her were coming forward, and just knowing that the world is going to be a better place because she has such a kind heart.
yeah.
And yeah, and I hope I'm going to make an impact with my books. I hope that my stories help other people, but I know that the way I'm raising her is going to make a difference for a
That's a
lot of
great
people.
answer. That's awesome. So, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, all of your readers, all of your coworkers, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm very complicated. um, I think I think I'm a good person, a kind person. I think that I'm very open-minded, and I try and work on being a very intuitive person, empathetic, compassionate. For me, it's one of the things that I think people love about me and drives them crazy at the same time is I'm very relationship oriented, and I believe in getting tasks done. I know it's important to do the job and to get it done right, but I also think that we can be building relationships the entire time that we're doing that.
Yeah,
And connecting with people is just so huge for me that I would say that's one of my biggest things. And I've actually been called the connector before, because I can't solve all the problems, that's for sure, but I love to connect people with other people who can and just build those relationships. Not sure if that completely
that
answered your question,
no,
but
it does. And I think that's the thing that we learned about COVID was that we had all these devices and technology to connect us, but ultimately it was that human connection, that community that we were thriving to get back to, you know. So
yes.
if anyone wants to pick up your books, learn more about you, reach out, any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
So the easiest place I would say is Amazon. My book is Penny Panda and the Gift of Possibility. That was the first one that came out. Is available on Amazon. It's also available anywhere else that books are sold, but it seems like Amazon's kind of the quickest way to get a copy of it. I have a second book coming out. It's called Penny Panda and the Emotion Ninjas, and that one will be out in September. And that one will also be available anywhere books are sold. That I am also going to do a Kickstarter for that campaign, and so it will be in July, the Kickstarter, and that'll be an opportunity for folks to pick it up before it publishes and to get some special goodies that go along with it as well.
Excellent. So I have a jazz radio show, and one of my good friends surprised me actually and came to Kansas City to play a show. And one of the songs on his album is called Talk to Your Panda. So he asked everybody last night, the crowd, does anyone own a panda? Which no one's gonna have a panda, but it's kind of
Right.
fun that there's kind of it's funny how life works that way. So, um, but
That is funny. I'm going to have to look that song up.
yeah, absolutely. It's Daniel Bennett is his name. So If
Okay.
you look him up, it's his latest album. It's called Mr. Bennett's Mind, and it's a really cool song. It's catchy. So, yeah, definitely.
Nice.
So, thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. I'll make sure to get links here in the show notes and send everybody out to get your books and keep doing the good work. I know that fighting fires is a different deal up in the West than it is in the Midwest, so I know it's pretty grueling. I've seen enough documentaries about how tough it is, and it's very necessary. So, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I can't wait. I'm super excited to get the word out and hopefully help more people.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go, how do you pronounce your last name correctly? I don't want to assume.
Oak, like the tree.
Okay, good. I'm glad I asked because that E sometimes can be daunting.
Yeah,
As
it's
you
kind
should,
of, I
as you
know,
know.
yes. Yes, I get Okie quite often. And it's kind of funny because in the seventh grade, I had a best friend whose last name was Pranky. And everyone wanted to call her Prank, even though she had an E at the end. And everyone wanted to call me Okie.
That's
So it was just
weird.
kind of, yeah, it was a fun little thing. We were always like, just switch them, flip them.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. Well, Nicole, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much. Best of luck with everything.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good day.
You too.